Hello everyone, my name is Nathan, and today it's time to dive into Kerbal Space Program 2. Finally, it is upon us. I've been looking forward to it so much, and my goal is to inform you about the progression of the development of this game with the new features and content that's being added in the future. Right now it is in a similar state as KSP1 in its infancy, so there are all the parts. You can launch planes and rockets, maybe set up an orbital station or a moon station. You can visit all the planetoids, but there is no actual reason to do it other than just to do it, and there's no currency and nothing. However, if we have a look at the roadmap, we can see we are in for a treat. Science and tech tree progression is going to be added first. This is when we start a new save game and test all of that out. Later on, we'll be getting access to more colony parts in order to set up stations. New star systems are going to be added, and even resource gathering. Very exciting. And of course, at the very end, we will also be able to enjoy it with friends. First of all, let's get familiar with the Space Center. I called this one Sandbox, and it's the heart of our operation. If you're into tutorials, I recommend you to visit the training center. Otherwise, there is the tracking station that we can use to keep track of our ongoing missions. Everything that is in orbit, even debris, can be tracked here. Next up, we have the vehicle assembly building, where we are building our rockets and planes. We have a bunch of runways for the planes, and then there are also launch pads all over the place, which is a very nice change to the previous game. Well then, I would say it's time we start creating our first vehicle, either by clicking on the building or the menu here and go into the VAB. It is quite a tall building, so rockets can be extremely large, which is a good sign. Now, as you can see, all of the parts here are already unlocked. We can build to our heart's content, and it is essentially a sandbox mode. If you find yourself using a part very often, hit the middle mouse button in order to put it into the favorite parts. Also, the parts come in various sizes. You have a very small all the way to extremely large, like this XL ball. Maybe we get the basics out of the way and just start with a command pod. This little thing will steer our ship and contain our Kerbals, generally what you start with. For our first flight, we're gonna keep things simple, so I'm just gonna add a small fuel tank at the bottom, and then we're gonna go over to the engines in order to add one of these. Let's go to the right category. Let's maybe choose this one here. Doesn't matter for our first flight. We just want to get some of the principles out of the way. Right now we have everything we require in order to go up. Fuel, an engine, and someone to steer it. In order to come down, we're going to need a parachute. Let's have a look at the utilities category here and set up a parachute for this rocket. Now, before each launch, you want to check your stages, which you can find over here on the right-hand side. At the moment, we are engaging the engine at the same time as the parachutes, which of course wouldn't be a good idea. So what we have to do is add another stage and put the parachute in stage 2. This will then first make the engine go, and afterwards the parachute. Now, of course, this rocket is pretty useless, but when we start to build more complex vessels, I will be able to explain the rest of this GUI. For now, let's just take this rocket with the stages correctly set up and go to the launch pad. Here we are. This is our tiny rocket. We do not need any support whatsoever for this one. What we can do is hit the go button, but maybe we first should understand some of the interface here. We have our nav ball, which is currently completely blue because the rocket is looking up and only the sky is visible. On the left-hand side, we can see how much thrust we are currently giving and also our current speed. On the right side, we can see how far we are away from the surface level. And then this entire bottom part here is dedicated to the stability assist system. This is going to allow you to point your rocket in a certain direction and don't have to do all the micro corrections that are necessary to keep it that way. We're going to be using that shortly. Right now, we just have to make sure it is engaged right here, and then we can hit the go button and enjoy this very unique countdown. And that's the liftoff. Right now we're just pointing straight up. There's not much else we can do with this rocket currently. On the right side here, we can see in each stage how much fuel we still have left. So right now we are going towards the 50% mark, and then we can see we're gaining a lot of speed and also height. Now at the bottom here, we can see our apoapsis and periapsis. Apoapsis is the highest point of our trajectory, where the periapsis would be the lowest point, but a periapsis is only positive if you are actually in an orbit. We can see we already reached an apoapsis of 100 kilometers now, and we still have a little bit of fuel left. Now, if we go ahead and hit the M button, we will be going to the map menu, and we can actually see our trajectory here. There we go. We just ran out of fuel going up, but we're still, of course, trapped within the sphere of influence of the Kerbal planet, so we will be falling back down again. If you hover over here, you can see just how long it's going to take to actually reach this point, so we will be over here in 18 minutes. We will still be going straight up for another 18 minutes before we reach the highest point. The hovering over part is a little bit finicky, so I recommend you to just watch these numbers here, where you also have the same information. Of course, right here, we can see this eventually is going to result in a crash, but since we have a parachute, we will be able to prevent this. At this point, we have three possibilities. For one, we can just go ahead and enjoy the view of planet Kerbal, which is always something Bill here likes to do. We could also go for an EVA mission. Actually, let's do that. So my Kerbal could just exit and fly around a little bit. Look at that. The Mun is visible over here. Very nice. Let's go back in board with B, and we could also have let go with space. Anyway, the other two possibilities we have is to speed things up a little bit, either by just doing it manually so we can increase the speed, or what we can also do is, for instance, go to the apoapsis, click this, and then time warp to the point. And this is gonna make us go really quickly there. This is now actually also possible while thrusting, which makes me really happy, because some burn maneuvers, as you might know, take several minutes, and being able to speed this up without some weird physical calculation is a relief. Anyway, let's now make our way back. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. We are now falling back down again, and here we are. Well, that was rather quick. And now, of course, we are starting to lose speed, and the opportune moment to open the parachute would be... Bill, no! Good. I think our problem here was we were way too heavy to lose enough speed due to the drag of the atmosphere. So I'm going to introduce a couple more parts. One is going to be in thermals, and what we want to see here is a heat shield, so we can go safely back down. And then inside the coupling category, we want one of these decouplers so we can get rid of this lower stage eventually. And of course, we also have to set this up here. So let's say we want to decouple once we run out of fuel. So we're going to get rid of the lower part, and then only the capsule is going to return back. So we're going to put this to the test right away. I'm just going to go, even dare to skip the countdown. I also really like how the exhaust cone gets a little bit bigger as the atmosphere becomes less dense. There we go. We ran out of fuel. What we can do is hit go or hit the spacebar in order to activate the second stage, which will just be decoupling this part right there. See ya. And of course, eventually this part is also going to drop back down to Earth, but if it was in orbit, then it would just remain there indefinitely until you either destroy it or recover it. But yeah, now we should realistically have a chance to make it safely back down. Of course, it's always better to come at a lower angle so you have more atmosphere to actually break your fall. But let's see this happen. We're gonna go down to around 80 or so kilometers, and then I'm gonna slow it down because we should be seeing some re-entry effects, maybe? Am I not gonna slow down? Where is the atmosphere? I'm missing the re-entry effects. They're kind of not there. But look at that. We are losing a lot of speed. Before 2,000 meters, we have to deploy the chute. Yeah, let's do it maybe right now. There we go. That's what I wanted to see. It will then deploy itself at 1,000 meters, I believe. Yeah, right there. And we are slowing down all the way. And now we can make our way down, even time warp. And if we manage to do this safely, we should be able to retrieve the vessel. Hitting the escape key while inside the vessel allows me to recover it now, which we're gonna do. I knew you could do it. Our first successful mission. Very nice. Alrighty, now that we know how to go up and get back down safely, it is time to do this in a more controlled manner and establish our first orbit around Kerbal. In order to do that, we're gonna go with a smaller pod with the capacity for just one Kerbal. We already know we're gonna require a parachute, and we're also gonna require a heat shield. Since we're going to be spending some time in space now, it is best to get some electrical charge on board. We could go with mounted batteries, but I think for this purpose, one here at the bottom is going to be better. Yeah, let me actually go ahead and put this above the heat shield. And then of course, we also need a way to get the electrical charge back with a solar panel. Let's maybe go with extendable ones just for the giggles. And for that purpose, we're going to have a look at the symmetry mode. With a left click, I can just switch through the various modes. So if I wanted, I could set up these solar panels all the way around. And of course, snap is self-explanatory. You can also right click here and choose something. Let's go for 2x symmetry mode. If I'm not certain that I'm placing something correctly, I can also click this cube here in order to see any of the sides directly spot on. This way it's going to be way easier to judge whether or not I'm placing this in the center. Holding and dragging the right mouse button, you can look around, and with the middle mouse button, you can go up and down. And of course, scrolling is self-explanatory. In the future, we will also want to communicate with the base. So let's set up an antenna. For that, I'm going to go back into 1x symmetry mode because I don't need multiple antennas. Good. This is the part we're going to be coming back with. Now it's time to set up the next stage with a decoupler first. Let's go with the right size there. And of course, before we add any fuel tanks, it begs the question, how much fuel are we gonna need? At the bottom right here, we have a handy toolbar. One of the icons is labeled Trip Planner. Right here, we can set up any planetoid, for instance, Duna, and whether or not we want to come back, and the delta V is gonna be calculated for us. Now, from my experience, the destination delta V is probably the correct number. However, the vessel delta V doesn't seem to be right, at least not all the time. So let's just select any planetoid one-way trip, and right here we can see Kerbal low orbit is going to require 3,500 delta V. Let's maybe add a fuel tank right here together with a small engine in order to see what that changes. And we can see we now have 1,263 delta V. Now, if we head over to this panel, the engineer's report, we can see that our thrust to weight ratio with this configuration is less than 1, which means we cannot take off from Kerbal. However, considering we want to do this in multiple stages, this is not going to be the stage that brings us from the launch pad up. So we could, for instance, continue with another coupling stage. Then maybe we add a somewhat larger fuel tank, and we can then go with another engine. The swivel engine is a good one in order to be able to steer the rocket as we adjust the trajectory. The reliant engine would just be pointing into one direction. So we're going to go with this one here. And now we can see the new delta V is about 3,000. Now we could continue putting some rockets on the sides, or we could just also add more fuel. And sometimes you will have to experiment around with what is best. So if we add another fuel tank of the same size with the rocket, we theoretically have enough delta V to make it up. And there are also no complaints in the engineer's report. Now, another option we have, and I want to introduce this right away, is let's go into the decoupling again and get some of these radial decouplers. A small one is probably going to do in this case. We're going to go with 2x symmetry mode, set this up right here. Then let's have a look at the engines, scroll down a little bit to solid fuel boosters. And the good thing about these guys is they are very efficient when taking off, but they only know one thrust. They're just going to burn through their fuel once activated. Let's go with the middle-sized one here. Place this right there. And we can now see our new delta V is also over 3,500. And I'm also going to give these guys a cap. Let's actually make this stylish with E and Q. We can rotate stuff. Also W and S will rotate into the other direction. Good. Now maybe another interesting thing to look at is the center of thrust, which currently is right here. We might want to go ahead and set this up a little bit lower, such as this. We can also check out the center of mass, and then for aviation we can also see the center of pressure. Let's now make sure to set up the stages correctly. We want to first thrust with all our thrusters and then decouple the solid fuel boosters. Then we're gonna decouple this guy and enable the thruster for the smaller rocket part. And then finally, we're gonna decouple the rest of the rocket as we come down. And in the very end, we're gonna enable the parachute. Now, one thing I noticed, it is always helpful to set up a bunch of stabilizers as well. We can do this on the right and left side. Let's see what size we want to go with. I guess just one of these guys should be doing the trick. I guess since we don't have to spend any money, I'm also going to set up some wings on the top side. This is just going to give us a little bit more control and make it less likely that the rocket flips out. Another thing within structures that it's always useful is the strut connector that allows you to connect various parts and make them much stronger. So we could go down from here to these guys, and this will make it much less wobbly. There's even more stuff to this interface, but as we do missions such as going to the Mun and landing there, I will be explaining everything. Right now, our main focus is to launch this baby into orbit and bring it safely back down. Before we lift off, I made a couple of changes. I added another tank here, and I also added larger stabilizers. However, I made the solid boosters a little bit smaller. They are just supposed to help us get a little bit of initial speed, and then the swivel engine is gonna take over. We're gonna launch into a beautiful sunset. Let's go. 3, 2, 1, blast off. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And Kerbal will be left behind. Now the solid boosters are almost out. There we can already detach them and then just keep going straight up, at least for the first 5 kilometers. Now that we reach this point, I'm gonna start to slightly tilt it over to the right side, and as we approach the 10 kilometers mark, I'm gonna try to go all the way over to the 90 degrees point. Now this is not the perfect trajectory, but it is gonna do for our purpose. And now I'm gonna try to bring this prograde marker all the way over to the 90 degrees point, trying to keep the rocket as stable as possible. And now once we're here, we're just gonna remain here, and now we can watch our apoapsis growing until we reach the 80 kilometers mark. We can also have a look at the map screen right here and see our apoapsis growing, but I also want to make sure that we don't miss the decoupling of the next stage here. We are at 60 kilometers apoapsis and it is about 1.5 minutes away. At 80 kilometers, I'm gonna cut the engine with X. And now we have just a little bit of fuel left in this stage. I'm actually gonna use that fuel up, gaining an even higher apoapsis. There we go. Now the fuel is all out. I'm gonna cut the engine and decouple this stage right there. Maybe we get away slightly. Okay. Our apoapsis is 2 minutes away. This is enough time to explain the node system. Just before the apoapsis, we want to thrust again in order to change the trajectory so we end up in an orbit. So say we want to do this right here, we create a maneuver node, and pulling on the prograde marker, we can increase that trajectory. And you can see as I'm increasing that, we are starting to establish the orbit. Now the apoapsis is moving away from me, but we will be able to fix that with the blue marker. So let's say we want to shift everything a little bit over. I can pull on the blue marker and make the orbit shift over. And on the red marker, I could tilt the orbit. So I just want to shift it back over until the apoapsis comes back again. Now we have an apoapsis of 115 kilometers versus 73 for the periapsis, which is fine for our purposes right now. Also right here, we can see the node planner. It is actually going to be very soon. So right here in the SAS control, I want to point towards my maneuver node that I just planned out. And then we're going to wait for that burn time in 15 seconds. We can also see we're going to require 1000 delta V to do this maneuver, and we have 1200 available at the moment. 3, 2, 1, and with the button Y, I can give it full thrust immediately. And now we can also see how long the burn time is going to be. This is an adjustable number, so depending on what engine you're currently using, this number is going to change. On the map screen, we can now also see our trajectory changing until we establish that orbit. Well, hold on, what happened here? Yeah, this is not really the node that I wanted to execute, but you get the basic gist. Let's now actually cut the thrust and see what we are at. I'm gonna keep going a little bit until we are in the safe zone here with the periapsis, so above 80 or so kilometers. And now we have our orbit established. I guess I must have gotten confused with the maneuver node as I planned it. But yeah, we are in a safe and sound orbit. The debris is gonna fall back down somewhere on a house. No, looks like the ocean. And what we could do now is click these solar panels and extend them. You can also make a shortcut group for them if you want to. And of course, we wanna point these approximately towards the sun right there, right? How wonderful is that? Now let's say we have enough, we are ready to land back down. We achieved our goal of establishing an orbit and we have 200 delta V to make it back down. The best time to do your burns is always at the apoapsis or periapsis, at least if you want to be efficient. I betcha with 200 delta V we can do the burn whenever we want. So I think what I would like to see is me landing in a specific spot. Maybe we can land back near the Kerbal Space Center right here. So just pulling on the retrograde marker, we can bring this all the way back down. We need 122 delta V for this. And then of course we also have to take into consideration the drag of the atmosphere, which is going to bring this even closer. So it's best to land a little bit further away, but obviously I will not be able to nail it here the first time. But still, let's do this burn. We're gonna warp all the way to the burn time over here. We are facing the node and we are ready to burn in 3, 2, 1, and go and cut, right? Wait, where are we? Oh no, hold on. I cut too late. Maybe we can improve that situation by just facing up a little bit and burning some more. How much fuel do we have left? 90. But if we burn a little bit up, you can see I can adjust this so that the trajectory moves a little bit over. Yeah, we're just gonna burn the last of our fuel and hope for the best. Whoops, I think I overdid it. Oh no, hopefully the atmosphere is gonna break me enough. Here we come around. I just love these moments. We're definitely gonna overshoot our target for now. Let's maybe go ahead and ditch this last stage here. I don't think I can actually retract the solar panels anymore, so they are gonna fall off. But it's a sacrifice I'm willing to take. Yeah, here it is at the very end. I mean, we are almost there, but I definitely overshot it. Kind of disappointing, but we will be able to see it. Yeah, look at this flying above the Kerbal Space Center. Oh well, I guess they will have to retrieve me at some point. And here we are dropping down to the 10 kilometers mark. Oh, looks like we get another successful mission here. And holy cow, these solar panels, they just can't break. There we are, parachute opening. They actually survived it. Bob, I'm so happy you didn't die on this mission. Well done, well done. We are sinking. But we did. Oh my gosh, we're definitely sinking. I'm so sorry, Bob. I'm not sure we can help you anymore. Well, we can recover you. Okay. Wonderful. We actually did it and completed our first 2 missions successfully. The next time my intention is to go orbit and land on the moon and hopefully also make it back successfully. Then afterwards we can take it to the next level by making a space station, trying to dock multiple vessels with various purposes, and we could even go ahead and make a moon base or visit other planetoids. With that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed this introduction into the series of Kerbal Space Program 2. I'm really looking forward to cover everything this game has to offer, including updates and mods, features, and just everything, and I would like to achieve much more in this game. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you're interested in this kind of content, then please subscribe. You would do me a huge favor, and it also definitely helps liking on this first episode. Thank you so much for the support. Have a great time and see you soon. Bye bye.